Okay, wonderful. So we're ready to kick off. I'm going to start maybe from some introductions of the ground rule. First of all, I think you noticed that the track B is really popular. We usually have at least 100 people in a room, and virtually we have another 100, 200 people. So we all, if you ask questions, we have to use microphone. And if you did not have a chance to read his book, Fail Fast, Learn Faster, this is one of the most amazing books. So today, from the session in the morning, when you heard McKinsey talking about the data products, so this book is going to help you actually to shed the light on what does it mean to be in the product organization and how you can organize your activities. So Randy have been a current contributor to MIT Sloan Management Review, Harvard Business Review, and Forbes. Randy is a globally recognized leader and noted speaker on the topics of data-driven business leadership. He has been addressing leadership audiences on all 5 continents, so really through global leadership. He has been helped organizations to moderate the Chief Data Officer panel during the Symposium for 9 years. So next year is going to be our anniversary, so hope you don't miss it. So he has been serving also at MIT Event Advisory Board. Randy was the founder and executive officer of New Vantages Partners, a data and analytics strategic advisory firm, which he founded in 2001. His company, which have been acquired by Wavestone, a Paris-based global consultancy. So now he's currently serving as an innovation fellow and data strategy fellow for the Wavestones. Welcome, Randy, and please introduce your panel.
Oh, great. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Right. Well, it's great to be here again. Thank you for everyone who joined us. I think we have, I've been doing these panels for 9 years, and I think this is the most world-class panel that we've had thus far. So I'm going to introduce each of the panelists and give a little bit of background in terms of how I know them. So we'll start with Naris Echembody. Naris is the Global Chief Data and Analytics Officer for Universal Music. I've known Naris actually for close to 30 years, back when he worked with First Union Bank, which is now part of Wells Fargo. In 2022, he was named to the CDAOIQ #1 data leader. This year, I believe he's number 6. So we're going to ask you why you slipped. But we do have the #1 data leader from CDAOIQ here as well. So welcome, Naris. And then going down in alphabetical order, we have Bob Hedges. Bob Hedges I've known for about 20 years. Bob Hedges is, you think about people in the CDO role. Bob's a business leader, a proven business leader. When I first met Bob, he was running retail distribution for Fidelity Investments. Before that, I believe he ran retail banking for Fleet Bank. I think when he got the job as CDO for Visa, he called me up and said, I've been appointed CDO for Visa, and as you know, I know nothing about data. But he knows everything about business and everything about strategy, and probably now he knows a lot about data as well. So welcome, Bob. Raj Nimagata, I just met a few months ago. She's now the Global Research and Development Chief Data Officer at Sanofi, a wonderful company. Raj really represents the next generation of CDOs and data leadership, so we're thrilled to have Raj on the panel today. And then Diana Schildhaus. I first met Diana last fall at it was a Corinium CDAO event here in Boston. And she wowed the audience because I asked a question about whether CDOs were spending most of their time on offense or defensive activities. And we had a number of financial services chief data officers, and they said, well, we've moved up, so now we're spending 30% of our time on offensive activities, and maybe 40% of our time. And it came to Diana, and she says, we're spending 100% of our time on offense, and the audience cheered. And subsequently, I wrote an article about her in Colgate-Palmolive and Forbes, and just 2 months ago, she was named the #1 CDAOIQ 2023 Data Leader of the Year. So tough act to follow. Speaking about tough acts to follow, Tom Davenport, he gave a fabulous presentation earlier, so kudos to Tom, and thanks for all the shout-outs as well. And then finally, Katya Walsh. Katya has a long history in every manifestation of transformation roles. She's been CDO, CDAO, now she's a Chief Digital Officer, so she can really talk about the differences in the two CDO roles. I met her first, or most recently, when she was working at Levi's, also wrote a Forbes article about the great work that she was doing there, and then spoke to the Levi's team about their data and analytics initiative. So we're very much looking forward to hearing about Katya's new role at HBS as Chief Data Officer. Okay. So as Tom alluded to, each year New Vantage Partners, now Wavestone, conducts a survey of Fortune 1000 data leaders. 84.6% of the respondents held the role of Chief Data and Analytics Officer. Here's some data from the survey. Tom had alluded to some of this. Roughly 90% said that investments in data and analytics were increasing, but here's one of the fascinating things. We asked about the progress of your data and analytics initiatives, and we said, are you driving business innovation with data? In this case, nearly 60% said yes. We asked, are you competing on data and analytics? Only 40%, or Tom said, wow, that's really impressive. 40% said yes, so again, well under half. We asked, are you managing data as a business asset? Under 40% said yes. Have you created a data-driven organization? Only 23.9% said yes. And have you established a data culture within your company? Only 20.6% said yes. So the bad news is that there's a lot of work to be done. The good news is that there's a lot of opportunity and work to be done, so everybody should stay gainfully employed for many years or decades. Tom also alluded to the question that we asked about what was the biggest challenge or impediment to achieving any of these objectives, and by far the strongest was cultural issues, change, business process change, people, organizational adoption, transformation. A little bit more data. We asked about the Chief Data Officer role. We initially started the survey in 2012. At that time, only 12% of organizations had appointed a Chief Data and Analytics Officer. By this year, it was 82.6%, so the role has become pretty universal, but as we discussed, the tenure has been short. It may be getting shorter since this year, starting in January 1st, I got a call from a Chief Data Officer that said they were leaving their role. I believe there's roughly 16 Fortune 1000 Chief Data Officers that I've spoken to in the past 6 months that have left their role for one reason or another. A lot of it has to do with delivering business value and increased emphasis on that. We've asked about, is analytics now part of the CDO role? And nearly 70% said it now is, so that very much fits with Tom's thesis. And we also asked the question about the primary focus of the Chief Data and Analytics Officer role. And increasingly, organizations are moving on the offense, but given some of the economic circumstances as well as the failures in the banking industry, SVB and First Republic Bank, know that many banking chief data officers, particularly in more mid-sized banks, so the next tier down, are being pulled back onto defensive type of activities. And then a couple of final pieces of data. We asked, is the role well understood within your organization? And only 40% said it was, which fit very nicely with the AWS survey as well. And we asked about the success of the Chief Data and Analytics Officer role, and roughly only over a third said that it was successful and well established within their organization, and that otherwise people were continuing to struggle with the role. So my first question for the panel is, how did each of you come to assume your current your current CDAO role, or the equivalent, or in Katya's case, the Chief Digital Officer role? So maybe a little bit about your evolution into this role, and whoever would like to start first, please.
I'll start. So this is my fourth role in this space. It's always had a different title. And I go back now to Prudential Financial. The year is 2012. I had joined Prudential from Fidelity Investments. I looked around and I said, where is your data? They said, well, we're in the dark ages. And I got 2 jobs, the job that they had hired me to do, and I assumed a new role, which was to help Prudential Financial really rediscover its data and reconnect with its customers. And we created a whole new Prudential. We created a chief customer officer, and the entire company was reorganized to be more customer-centric as opposed to product-siloed as it used to be. So the first role I made myself as head of data analytics at Prudential. And then the subsequent 3 roles, the second one was as chief big data and AI officer of Vodafone Group in London. They found me, and it was such an irresistible opportunity to work with 25 countries and to start this from scratch. So I think the next patterns would be that there would be a consultant, usually McKinsey, not always. So McKinsey would have been there. It would have told the company, you need a chief data and analytics officer or some version of it. They would say, oh, we have to do it because McKinsey tells us. But it was not always connected to the strategy of the company, the specific goals and purpose, and that can be a reason why it can be hard. So after Vodafone, I was recruited by Levi Strauss & Company. So again, I didn't make it myself. I was recruited, a completely different industry, and the role there was very different, still assuming data, but it was actually a chief strategy and AI officer. By the way, they had called it chief strategy and analytics officer, and I made them call it chief strategy and AI because I could tell what was happening. And that was a great experience. And just recently, I had the opportunity to join Harvard Business School as its first chief digital officer. So the titles are different, but it's always the same transformational role. And it's always interesting and exciting and always hard.
Great. Thank you. And congratulations on the new role.
Thank you.
Who else would like to tell about their journey? Oh, Bob, you're smiling, so I guess it's going to be you.
Sure, I'm happy to go next. So in 2018, I had joined Visa essentially as the head of corporate strategy, and had done a variety of assignments for Al Kelly and Ryan McInerney. And in late 2021, one of the things they asked me to do was to look at data practices within the company. And so we did an assessment of the use of data within Visa. And if statistics are normal, probably 65% of the people in this room have a Visa product. So having said that, we run a really decentralized organization. We operate in 150 countries. We have probably 7 major business lines, so 7 times 150. That's the matrix in which there are Tableau implementations with people using data, right, by country, by product line. And our review was we needed to move to have a more coordinated, I don't want to use the word centralized, more coordinated approach to the management of data at Visa. So we did a little review. We didn't hire McKinsey. I wrote a memo. Al and Ryan said, this is a really good idea. And then after the meeting, they called me back and said, would you want to take the role? And I said, I'm totally unqualified for this role. And they said, no. You actually understand how the organization works. So that was in February of 2022. And so in the role that we created as Global Chief Data Officer, I have responsibility for how we collect, manage, use, and create value with data. So all the policy issues regarding can you or can you not, all the tech platform issues of how do we do it, all the permissioning issues, all the products we bring out, and the 500 data scientists are all part of my organization. And I think to your question, I think I ended up in the role because I think Al and Ryan really understand what needs to be done as a management challenge with really significant cultural change obligations.
And I think that's an interesting point because too often chief data officers have to fight their way up the organization and fight to be a voice to be heard. And Bob was literally brought in at the top of the organization, so he's plenty heard. And, you know, when you were at Fidelity, you were managing a business of what size, how many people? So,
Well, when I was at Shawmut Fleet, we had like 15,000 people.
yeah, right.
In
So,
the retail organization.
yeah, so here's a business line executive now responsible for data. Who would like to go next? How about you, Naris?
My story is somewhat different from Bob's, but also equally unconventional. I actually built and sold to data-oriented companies, and I was kind of in semi-retirement, wasn't really planning to work when I was just having conversations with people, and I got connected to my current boss, who's the president of UMG on the direct-to-fan side. And she said, I need a data officer, and it was a situation where a consulting firm had been there, and they had sort of created a data strategy, but there was nobody there to actually implement it, and the company didn't quite understand what was needed to be done. So it was a role where I had to go in and sort of write my own job description, create the structure, hire the team, which is what I like to do. I'm an entrepreneur. I like to build things. And it was in an industry I had absolutely no knowledge of. So it sounded like a very interesting idea. So that's how I ended up in the job.
So how does it feel to go from banking to Taylor Swift and
Well, luckily for me, I went from banking to entrepreneur, developing a software company, and then here. And I'd say for a large company, UMG is pretty chaotic, so I can deal with it.
Okay, excellent. So who's going to go next? Our future of CDOs or our number one CDOIQ person?
Yeah, I can go. Mine is maybe little different, very different. I started my journey as Oracle developer, right? Writing a bunch of SQL codes and running reports and stuff. So worked for J&J, worked for a small startup in putting together all analytics solutions. So then maybe 10 years ago, I joined Novartis. They went through, I think, one of the pioneers in the pharma industry in transforming in data digital side. So I got an opportunity to run their own business and data transformation. So I have that multidisciplinary knowledge experience where I am a technical person, but I was sitting in the business and running their transformation. So you're not running digital as a digital transformation, but looking at how business process, data, all these are connected so that you can drive the value from get-go. So in that journey, we are always saying, how can you accelerate the drug development and discovery so that you can bring medicines faster to the market? So that's always in the DNA of what I was doing from very early on. So with that, I was, I guess, bottom-up experience in the data and analytics CDO experience. And then I got an opportunity to work in Sanofi as a R&D chief data officer. We call it as a head of data office. So it's running the data strategy, connecting data sets across research, development, clinical supply, manufacturing, and global regulatory affairs. So the main theme was how do you connect all the data that you have, how you can create these real-time analytics so that we can make more data-driven decision making. So it's like a ground-up experience, how you can drive your master's in computers experience with your pharma business knowledge and translate it into a data and CDO role. So it's a great journey, enjoying it. For sure, there are many challenges on the way. I'm looking forward to talk more about it.
And Raj, I mentioned at the outset the significant turnover in the CDAO role since the beginning of this year. So there's a lesson of some kind.
Yeah, I think proudly I would say as a R&D level, we would say we are the pioneers in R&D, that we were able to make an impact on how a data transformation can bring value to the organization. And in multiple levels, like including CEO made a comments on how R&D can be used as an example in transforming the data and data transformation in a bigger organization like Sanofi. Sanofi is a big mergers and acquisitions. It's like a 300 companies acquired in last 30 years. So you can imagine the type of silos, the type of different assets you can imagine. Pretty much every challenge that you can imagine, we have it in Sanofi. So huge technical debt. I think Tom mentioned about it. So we are going through that transformation journey. It's an amazing experience.
Great. And Diana, We saved the best. We saved the number one for last. So,
Okay.
so tell us about
Yeah.
your journey.
I was going to say that I have an unconventional background, but it sounds like actually everyone does in some ways. So maybe that's a sign that the role itself is shifting a bit. So my background, I actually started in finance for the Walt Disney Company. So my undergrad degree was not in computer science. It was finance and information systems. I'm not actually sure that any kind of data science or analytics degree existed, at least at my university at the time. And I went to grad school. I have an MBA, so that's my master's is in general business management. And then I worked for a company called Westfield, which is a shopping mall developer, Australian-based, but they had a U.S. portfolio. And there I was working in insights and analytics, and then made my way to Mattel, which is a global toy company. So I'm sure everyone has seen all the advertisements for the Barbie movie coming soon. You cannot miss it right now. So much buzz around that. And so there I was brought in. They knew that they wanted to do something with their data, but they didn't really know what that meant. So initially I was hired to sort of build the first business analytics team and kind of make sense of how they could use data. Added insights over my time there. And then I also ran strategy, so corporate strategy, brand and commercial strategy, as well as mergers and acquisitions. So a broad remit. Those functions actually work together quite a bit more than you might think, although you don't see them together in a lot of organizations. And then I joined Colgate-Palmolive. So here I'm the Chief Analytics and Insights Officer. This was a newly created role at Colgate at the time. And so I also have the opportunity to sort of build from a blank slate. We had pockets of analytics, I'd say, happening in some areas of the organization, but we were lacking an enterprise data and analytics strategy, and really that focus on business value and scale. And I think that part of the reason that I was recruited there and that we've had a lot of momentum the last couple of years, I think, is because my background is different. So I've been in the business. I've worked very closely with the business versus that technical lens. And I think a lot of times that's where you need that link to actually show the value that you're driving. And although I've been there 2 years and 3 months now. I did look at Tom's stat on the 2.5 years, and I thought, okay, better keep that date on the calendar. But so far, so good.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. And you report to the president,
I do.
correct?
I report to the president, yes.
And Bob, you report to the president? Okay. What about the rest of you?
I used to report to the CAO at
Okay.
Levi's, and I report to the equivalent of the CEO
Okay,
at
excellent.
Harvard Business School.
How about,
Same. My boss is president of the D2C business for UMG worldwide.
Raj?
I report to the head of R&D under R&D.
Okay, so a diversity of reporting relationships, and nobody's reporting to the CIO, so note that. To Tom's great disappointment. So what have been the greatest challenges that you faced as Chief Data and Analytics Officer, and who would like to tackle this one first?
I can go
Okay.
first on this one. So, I think coming into an organization where this was a new function, it's great to have some incoming level of enthusiasm for what, the possibility is of what you can do. And so, very fortunately, I had that coming into Colgate. I think it's hard to escape all the HBR articles and, articles written by Randy and Tom talking about the value of data and analytics. So I think I was fortunate that the executive team, generally understood that it would be valuable and created this role. But then I think, the big challenge that we all face is in actually making that tangible and real for the business in a way where, you don't sort of get questioned on investments and they can see really how it will help them in the day-to-day. And I think that, kind of goes along with data culture and also literacy, and understanding what this is that we're actually doing and what the tangible value is we can bring. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that this role faces in general, and that's why you heard, and Tom, I think Tom is right there, right? That's why you heard so much in Tom's speech about how important it is to figure out the way in your company that you can best articulate the value that you're bringing. For us, we're focused on ultimately revenue dollars. That is sort of the holy grail of the analytics work, the ambition that we're bringing to the organization. Much less so, cost savings and adoption. Those are important too, but we're really targeted towards growth, and that comes in dollar growth.
And you were telling Tom and I this morning about the data literacy program and how that worked. Could you share a little bit of that.
Sure, yeah, that's something I'm really proud of that we did at Colgate last year. And actually the person on my team who worked very much on that is sitting in the room right now in the second row. So this was something that really, we partnered very closely with our HR organization on this. And it was important to us that this had senior level support and sponsorship and was not a one-size-fits-all program. And so what we did is we actually started with an assessment that went, it was a maybe 25-question quiz that went to all of our salaried and professional employees, including the CEO, down to entry-level folks across Colgate. And coming out of that, you received a score. It was confidential. It was just for you. That basically unlocked a curated learning pathway of, you work in marketing and this was your score. Therefore, these are the 3 next recommended courses for you. And so we had a very broad range of technical courses, more business-focused courses, things like how to present data visually, how to craft a story out of data and analytics, and really just how to, if you're in, say, marketing or sales, really how to use it in your day-to-day. And so I think that level of customization in the literacy program and the fact that it really reached everyone was a big part of the success. The other was that senior sponsorship that I mentioned. So, we had our CEO posting on LinkedIn that he had completed the course and he put his badge up. And I mean, that's the absolute best, message you can send to the organization, that if it's worth his time to take the course and he will post, his badge that he got, that sends the message to everyone that this is supported in the company. So I think the fact that it was so broad-reaching was really an important element to it, because it was seen as a strategic priority for the company, that we upskill the entire organization in this.
And I believe Tom asked you this morning, he asked you about a couple of the questions. I didn't know the answer to either of them, so it was 0 for 2.
I'll send it to you.
What about the other panelists in terms of the greatest challenges you faced as a CDAO?
I can chime in because one of the greatest challenges is when you are first, nobody understands what you do. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done to help people understand. Most people are intimidated. They think that it's technology and they should understand it, but they don't. At the same time, there are great expectations because the McKinseys of the world have sold those great expectations. But you go and you don't have a team and you expect it to adapt and do the same processes that all these big established departments with hundreds and thousands of people have. And you literally show up as the first person, and you have to hire, you have to educate, you have to communicate, and most importantly, you have to start delivering value immediately. Because I have always looked at this role and this function as a profit center. There's no reason that we cannot deliver measurable value. And just some examples. By the time I left Vodafone, the team that grew from 0 to 500 in 25 countries was delivering 2.6 billion euros in revenues. And by the time I left Levi Strauss & Company, we were delivering some much smaller companies, so the scale is different, but we were delivering hundreds of millions of dollars. And just one example of how we helped Levi's during the pandemic, as you might remember, a lot of the stores that were selling apparel were deemed non-essential, so our stores were closed. And there was all this inventory that was piling up. As soon as the stores reopened, most of our competitors started to discount en masse because they were in panic that they had all this inventory and they needed to move it. Levi's did not discount because during that time of closed stores, we had run models all around the world predicting exactly how much consumers would pay for each product through each channel everywhere in the world that Levi's was sold. So we knew, it was predicted, that most consumers would pay full price because of the strength of the brand and because of pent-up demand. So we did not discount. And as a result, Levi's had one of its healthiest financial margins in 2020. So it's definitely a profit center, but it's not easy. There are lots of challenges. So what I loved about the data literacy program is I haven't done quite that, so I love the badge. And I was more focused on AI than analytics. But Levi's, and I sold it to the CEO and to HR, and they did support that. We created the machine learning bootcamp, and we trained 200 people in code, in Python, in agile ways of working. They use Levi's data to solve Levi's problems. And those were people, most of whom had never seen code before. We had people from retail stores, retail managers. One of them used to be homeless in Los Angeles. He worked his way to become a store manager in Los Angeles. Then he participated in the boot camp. He was one of my first guinea pigs in the first cohort. He did extremely well. I hired him in my team, and he is now a data scientist at Levi Strauss & Company. He does not have a college degree. So to the point about, thank you. To the point about different backgrounds, that's exactly it. There is a stereotype, but that one is really wrong. There is no right or wrong person for the job. It's really about what you bring to it. And business, communication, finance, all of these are amazing, research, all of these are amazing backgrounds. So communication is really important, and I cannot emphasize that enough. So what did they do to resolve the challenges? Because we don't want to just talk about challenges and not talk about the solutions. So to solve the problem with people not understanding it, we can communicate, but actions speak larger than words. So it was much better to actually show the value. So deliver the value was very important. How do you change the culture? Upskilling was a huge, huge part of that. That machine learning bootcamp gave us 200 champions of data and AI throughout the organization. So it wasn't me talking about that. It was all of them throughout the company. And then communication is really important because, again, when someone is very technical and continues to talk technical language, that only perpetuates that issue with leaders, whether it's business, education, any kind of organization. We need to make them comfortable, and we need to have their support because we depend on them. We could not do it without them. So communication is huge. And I have a background in communication, so that certainly helped.
Wow. That's fascinating, and I'm glad you called out the importance of communication. And it's interesting that you've been in multiple transformation roles, so it's interesting to see that connection. Would anybody else like to speak about their greatest challenges, or we can move to the next question about creating business value? Because I think this year in particular, it's a function partly of maturity, it's a function of economic issues, it's a function of the bank failures. There's been a lot of greater scrutiny of chief data officers in terms of, hey, by the way, where's the business value you're delivering, because we've been building all these data meshes, data fabrics, data democratization, data products, et cetera. Where's the value? Bob, you look eager to...
I'm going to answer the challenge question, but segue to set up my colleagues here. So when I took on the chief data officer role in February 2022, it was the proverbial dog that caught the fire truck, right? And so there's a whole set of challenges if you're a dog and you catch a fire truck and the fire truck's going through the city streets really fast and you're hanging on. But those weren't the biggest challenges. I think the biggest challenge, the ongoing challenge, is to make sure that you're working on things that are material. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but I get like 100 emails a day from people I don't know who want my time because they think they have a really big idea. And some of them I'm sure are great ideas. And if that's happening to me, it's happening to the next 500 people who work for me in the company. And I think there is, the biggest challenge we've had is establishing some discipline around what's worthwhile working on and what's not. And if you run a big decentralized organization with lots of really bright people, Terry Murray, who is the CEO of Fleet, once told me, Bob, you know the problem with hiring smart people is they want to do things, right? And he was a bank CEO. And so I think all that's good, but the biggest challenge is getting a common definition of what's material and getting everyone focused on doing the material things. Because it's, someone once told me, it's really, really easy to be busy. It's hard to make money. And getting everyone to focus on the material things that matter is the biggest challenge of the job.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think focus is often a common denominator among those that succeed and those that struggle. Naris or Raj, you want to weigh in on business value or impediments to success?
Yeah, I think that's a great segue, actually. Focus. I mean, in our case, because it was a new role and we had to build the team, we also it was this notion of having data for things other than streaming. Streaming is a big part of our business, and obviously everybody in the company is very focused on the streaming numbers by artists and which artists are down and up, and the Billboard charts and stuff. That's everybody does that. That's table stakes. But beyond that, what's driving these things? Especially on the direct-to-consumer side, it's a business that people don't quite understand, and the data can go a long way to helping them figure out how to grow that. And it grew very nicely during the pandemic. And then how do you sustain it beyond that? So that's a big part of the challenge. And the focus, I mean, the first 3 months I took the job, I didn't actually do much other than I had a broad structure in mind, and I hired some key people, one of whom is in the room here. What we had to do was to figure out, I went and talked to all of our country heads and label heads, tried to figure out what it is they wanted us to do and what the organization needs to deliver for them. And there was a lot of hunger. And then the second thing was prioritizing, figuring out which of these really were going to move the needle and what are capabilities. And we were, trying to build the train and get it moving at the same time. And so building the team, putting some products out there. And that's one of the things we did successfully. And I think you guys talked about it this morning, is productizing what we are doing so that it's not ad hoc stuff all the time, so that it's regular, it's expected, people are trained, there's data literacy, they know what to look for, and the information is given to them in a way that is digestible and useful. And understanding what those capabilities are, that was a big challenge. What is the right level at which to pitch the product? And what drives consumption? We monitor the consumption of our data products very closely to understand what's being used, what's not being used, and that's a very important element of the success, so that we also understand what's next and what's the roadmap, and sharing that roadmap with our stakeholders. That's a very critical challenge as well.
I'm hearing a lot of common business skills: communication, focus, prioritization. Interesting. Raj?
Yeah, maybe I can add one thing. The right mix of operating model. Like, given your organizational maturity, you want decentralized, centralized, or federated, right? That's you should be able to judge that based on your current situation of the organization and maturity of the organization. You cannot just go by some consulting experience, right? You can take the feedback, but you have to know your organization. I think, as I said before, we have multiple attempts in Sanofi. I think in some cases some things worked, in some cases it didn't, because you cannot operate everything sitting at the enterprise level. You have to handhold the business and do certain activities like either data management, governance, or analytics. I think that's where we struggled a bit.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Because the consultants that were always there before they paved the road for my role always talked about operating model. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
How do you want
What do we mean by operating model? Yeah.
How do you want to operate? Where you want your skilled people sitting and working, right? Like, for example, in our R&D data office, we have our teams sitting with business, understanding what a scientist do day in, day out, and how we can help, how a data or digital transformation can help them in using those analytics to automate their day-to-day manual steps, right? That's
Isn't that like the same as organizational model?
Organizational model, operating model, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Bob Hedges, you were a long-time management consultant. Maybe you could,
I'm just going to smile.
Okay, so the next question, I'm going to move from all the softball questions to a tougher question. Why do you think so many CDAOs have struggled and left their roles within just a couple of years?
I can tell because I've been through. So obviously I can't speak for people, but the mistakes I've seen are that people go and they wait and developed this grand plan. First, I'm going to get this beautiful data lake, and it's going to be pristine and gorgeous, and there will be lily pads in it. And then after that, I will get the tech platforms and all the infrastructure. And then after that, I will think about how we can start delivering value. By that point, the CFO has lost patience, and they have no budget. And so this build it and they come approach really is a problem. And I do wish that we would all help these people go there with a focus on value and propagating this idea of this is a profit center. And if you're going to be a modern business, you have to operate with that as part of your business.
Maybe if I can add that, right? When you are at a CDO level, you are corporate. Like you are trying to address like every single functions in the organization. You try to please everybody, and you don't have a clear mandate or clear, like you are not star projects. Or you are trying to build capabilities, like you're building a data catalog, or you try to build like a next AI platform and all. But what exactly are you trying to solve? Who is your customer? What value are they going to get in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? To your point, it's absolutely right. I think having that business value mind in that data product development is very, very important. And especially, I think the patience level is very low because we have this AI storm, data storms are coming. So the speed is so critical. So how fast you can deliver is important. And the third piece is, I don't know, maybe should be a question in one of the surveys, Tom and Randy. How much time CDOs are spending in the data, like more on alignments, awareness, educating senior leaders, requesting for budgets, communicating offline, online, whatever, right? In my case, I continuously tracking for past 3 years. 60% of my time is meetings, aligning, right? Maybe the rest of the 40% is more on are we delivering or not. I hope that 60-40 can change. I hope we can track that in the next survey to see are we progressing or not. I think that's another struggle. Like there should be a clear mandate on what CDO should deliver and a clear support from the leadership.
I agree. Actually, that's another reason that people leave. It's a hard job. It takes a lot of time. It's like birthing a baby. It's at the same time exhilarating and exhausting, and some people just can't take it because it's 100% full-time job to just do the alignment. That word, like operating model, do not get me started, but it is true. It is real. You have to do it because you have to bring people along. You are an ambassador, and you want to bring them and get the right organizational model in place. And by the way, it's really critical to have that kind of hub and spokes organizational model where you have some kind of center for efficiencies and career development, but the people are actually located in the departments, functions, business units, countries, because that's where they're delivering the value and they become ambassadors. Yep. But it's a hard job, and if you're not prepared to do the alignment, to deliver value, to communicate, not everyone can do it.
You know,
these guys are heroes.
One thing that makes it easier, though, in my experience, and I did this at First Union many years ago, and doing it at Universal Music, is to pick your partners. You don't have to work for everybody. You don't have to solve every problem. So it helps to go in. There are, as you said, we are a central capability. There are many stakeholders. Some people want to adopt. Some people want to push back. And my attitude very much has been, you want us, we'll be there for you. You don't want us, see you later. Maybe you'll get the message when the time is right. And that's exactly how it's played out. We actually had a couple of territories. We said they told us we are self-sufficient. We can take care of everything. We don't really need you. And we said, that's great, terrific, good for you. We'll go help the others. And now they're coming to us and saying, come talk to me.
The way you asked the question, the context of it would suggest that somehow the CDO failed, right? And I'd argue that the bigger question is, why do we keep hiring the wrong people? So that then, because I think the job properly understood, and it's a coalition building job, right? And I think we make the mistake, and I see it in my own organization, where rather than hire someone who's a good coalition builder, we hire somebody who has a point solution to a technical problem, and they're used to being the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
And so you're guaranteed with a washout, if that's what you do, as opposed to hire the person who's the most self-aware, has really high EQ, is an exceptional 600-word memo writer and put them on the problem. And those people, I bet, will have a much longer lifespan in the role than like really incredibly skilled technical people who don't have, and the issue isn't, it's the job descriptions about coalition building. And even when, even when we talk about, oh, they need to create value, that doesn't mean like building this really complicated net present value forecasting model.
Right.
It means like being able to tell the story and the narrative about where you're trying to go and get people to join the coalition.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Just to add on that, I think about the alignment piece is just exerting executive level influence. And I think to do that, you have to build trust, and there's no shortchanging that. So that's relationship building. And thinking about, you were saying about where you spend your time, I think having a crisp vision and strategy for where you're trying to take the organization and what it means to them. So ours is on one page at Colgate, and it shows up in everyone's decks. So you see it around. It's sort of the North Star of what we're doing. And it is easily communicated to different levels of leadership. And I think you have to build that trust and show that what we're doing is not academic or theoretical. We're partnering with the business. They need to see the value for us to claim the value as well. And it's really a partnership. And I think that I've seen I guess examples in the past of not putting that time in up front to build those relationships and get to know the business and exercising those EQ skills, which I think are equally important, if not actually more important at this level, to what you were saying, Bob.
And I think part of that is also understanding the capacity of the organization to absorb this stuff. It takes capability. There's so much that goes into it. It's not what you put in, it's like what they can take. And that's part of the challenge as well. And gauging that right is an important part of success.
There's also a sweet spot of where to focus when you start. I fully agree with you, Naras. If someone doesn't want us, that's fine. We're busy enough. Yeah. But there's a sweet spot. And that is usually not the largest business units because they're arrogant. We're doing just fine. Why are you coming to us? And not the smallest because they're too small and would easily be, would be told, well, they're not material, so that's fine, but they're too small. So the sweet spot is in the middle. Someone who is authoritative, someone meaning a business unit, a country, however a function, however the organization is organized, picking that, getting that person on board, delivering a product for that person. I'll give an example. And then you get a healthy competition, and then the big units come and say, yes. Oh, what about me? So the example I'll give you, and it talks about coalition building and communication. So at Vodafone, we focused on a sweet spot, which was Italy. Big country for Vodafone. Vodafone, probably, it's one of the largest mobile providers in the world, mostly in Europe, Africa, and Asia. And Vodafone Italy is one of the biggest in Europe. So we focused on creating a product which was basically a combination of a chatbot and predictive models to address churn. And we gave it a name, Advanced Learning and Decision Optimizer, acronym ALDO. Well, Aldo Bisio was the CEO of Vodafone Italy. It was not coincidental, and he was very proud of it, and he kept using it.
So I want to take off on that. Amit is here. Actually, his group, which is our data products group, created a product we are in the music business. And the product is called FAME, Fan Analytics and Marketing and E-commerce dashboard is what it's a dashboard product. And the fact that it was called FAME went a long way within the music business, and that they made it a very, very successful product in terms of getting data out there. Absolutely.
You have to be a marketer.
Branding is important. In fact, the person who developed it, he had some kind of technical name for it. And I said, you got to have a brand. You got to have a brand. And he kind of couldn't understand what are we talking about a brand within a company. And even within a company, you got to brand yourself. That's very important.
Well, I love the fact that none of you are lacking in passion and energy and commitment. Generative AI, the best thing that's ever happened to mankind or the worst thing that's ever happened to mankind? The silence. That's actually a question.
I think it's both. we need it. We need to discover, every single industry need to discover their own businesses and operations and be more productive. So this is a good thing, and especially the types of data that we are receiving, structured, unstructured, and all the different modalities. I think we need all these latest models. But where we need to fast track is data enablement. I'm carefully not using governance here because what we heard from Tom, right? I think the data is coming from different countries, different parts of the world. Like we need to be careful with privacy, legal, ethics, every single thing. And also, are we getting the right quality of the data? If we are running through a model and if you're getting some decisions out of it, are we taking the right decisions? What type of data is being used to derive that insight? I think we have to be a little bit careful. I haven't seen lot of awareness on that side. I think there is a lot of buzz on what use cases can we use, where we can go, but we need that product level governance and product level awareness at all these latest technologies like generative AI.
Great. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I'll add on
We
that.
have
So I
about
think, for
few minutes.
humankind, the jury's out. We'll see if this ends like a Black Mirror episode. Everyone see that one with the dog robots, right? That didn't end well. But I think for all of us in the field that we work in, it's really exciting. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard your executives at your company in the business talk about AI more than they probably are right now. So I think it's bringing visibility in general to the incredible potential of what we're all doing, and I think it's an exciting development for all of us. So I think generally great. We have to figure out, for us in an industry, we have to figure out now what's that business lens? This is what we're focused on. Where, rather than just sort of the shiny tech, new tool, what can we do with it? It is more, what are we as a company trying to do? What are our priorities? What is our strategy? And then how can generative AI play a role in helping support that? So I think looking at it in sort of that flip way is really important, and it's how we approach traditional AI and analytics as well, and we'll do the same for Gen AI.
Great. And just a final question, and then see if we have time for a couple questions from the audience. Any, I know you've already shared this throughout, but parting words of wisdom to the audience and current chief data and analytics officers or aspiring CDAOs?
Bob?
I'd say hire people who are fit for purpose. And I think there's a lot of temptation to hire people who have some of the skills but can't do the job. And there's, you all manage people, there's nothing worse than having to manage out someone who can't do the job that you yourself hired, right? So I think that's particularly, whatever stage the function is in, being really good about the hiring process is the most enabling thing a CDO can do.
Excellent.
Well, I have this motto that has helped me tremendously in 4 jobs now doing this, in 4 different industries, 4 different geographies. So it works, it's tested, and it is: think big, start small, scale fast. It's really important to have the big vision, and the one page is wonderful. It's also crucial to start small, not terribly ambitious, just get going with the sweet spot partner, and then as soon as possible, scale immediately. That's it.
Great.
Are we all going to give our advice?
Did you want to?
I have one, and I'll be quick
Sure.
with mine. Ruthless prioritization. So
That's
this
a
is
good
a
one.
mantra that we use within my teams in terms of where we're going to spend our time and focus, making sure that, again, it is something that will drive value for the business in an important way. And then I'd say once you've done that, be very visible about that within the organization. So we've talked about this a little bit. Internal PR is very important to what we're all trying to accomplish. And so the business needs to see the value that you're adding and agree with it.
Great. How about fail fast, learn faster? So for some additional reading, in case you're interested. And are there any questions from the audience or from the virtual audience?
Great. Why don't we start here?
So, Bob, I liked your comment about, organizations trying to come up with some really complex NPV calculation for the return from their analytics investment. And we see a lot of organizations struggle with what is the right level of precision for that. Anybody on the panel have any recommendations and best practices on how to calculate and also then communicate that value, and who's involved in that process?
I can start. So in my experience, we, meaning the delivery organization for this, should not be calculating it. It will be as if we are auditing ourselves. It should be finance. And actually finance should be communicating it as well, so that when you show big value, it's much more credible. And also, they're the experts in calculating value. They know much better. I would absolutely bring it. So that is a good start.
Just to tack on your question, upstream from your question is the issue of what it is, what's the packaging or branding of what you're trying to do. And I think a mistake that often gets made in analytical chief data officer-esque functions is they try to create their own narrative for how they're going to create value. And you're far better off aligning whatever you're doing with the pre-existing narrative. Like the CEO had a strategy, the head of the retail business had a strategy, had a strategy. Like, we don't need another one, right? And so the easiest way to get your calculations embraced is align it with the pre-existing narrative that you're enabling, rather than be another child at the table needing to be fed, right? You know, instead just align and enable the things that are already winning. And then the calculation becomes easy, because you're like literally drafting off the calculation somebody previously did.
Maybe if I can add, I think the calculation, if it comes from the business function, where you are simplifying a process, you are bringing productivity, I think if the story comes from them saying that I'm able to simplify this and that we are able to gain XYZ $1 million, I think it's much more powerful, right? That's another way we are doing it.
And Diana, would you like to have a closing word as the number
I-
one data IQ, as opposed to Naris, who
Yes.
split 6 spots?
I agree with everything that has been said. I will just reiterate a point I made earlier about the importance of it not being academic or theoretical. So part of what we talk about in our organization is having that discipline to follow up with the business on, these are the recommendations that we gave to you. Which ones did you take? Like, what was the business action? Because I think, far too often we sort of can deliver the solution or the product and then, think our job's done. And it's really not until the business acts on it. So I think that's a critical part to capturing value and calculating it.
Great. Well, I'd love to thank my great CDO all-star panel for being so good, so smart, so practical. Thank you so much.